Hey guys, welcome to our channel. In today's video, we are going to learn about what is an API and how to call an API in JavaScript. So API is nothing but an application programming interface that works as a middleware between two applications, and it is responsible for providing data to a user in a JSON format. So whenever user receives data in JSON format, user can show that this JSON data in a UI by using JavaScript. So let's get started. Let's create a folder called API data. Now let's open this folder inside of our VS Code. Now let's create a file name called index.html, and if we type here HTML, then it will show us three suggestions. Now if we simply click on HTML column 5, then we can get HTML documentation format within seconds. So it is sort of key. So let's type title. Let's give it a title fetch API data. Okay. Now inside of body tag, let's create a div and let's give it a class name called main, and let's give it an ID called main div. Okay. Now in JavaScript we will be targeting this ID, so let's create a JavaScript file. Now let's give it a name called index.js. Now let's print a message in console.log, and let's type a message. Let's fetch an API data. Okay. Now let's link this file in our HTML. To link this file, we will be using script tag. Script src / index.js. We can use this script tag inside of our tag too, but it is good practice to implement script tag inside of our body tag. So we will be using script tag inside of our body tag. Now let's open this HTML file in our browser. Okay. Now let's see in our console, and we can see our message that we have just printed in our JavaScript file. Let's fetch an API data. So my JavaScript is working perfectly. So in today's video, we are going to fetch an API data. So by using function, so we will be using fetch method. Now let's create a function. We will be using async function. It will return promise. So a function is nothing but a block of statement which can be used again and again whenever we need. Now let's give it a name called function get data. Okay. Now not this big bracket but curly braces. Now let's give it const data. Now let's type response await fetch. Okay. Now we will take API data from JSON placeholder.typecode.com site. So let's go to that site, JSON placeholder.typecode.com, and we can and this site provides a number of API, many numbers of APIs such as /post, /comments, /albums, /photos, /to-dos, /users. So in today's video, we are going to fetch /post methods, /post data, not methods but data. So we can see here there is a number of data which is showing in our browser in the form of string. So now let's copy this URL and paste it in the fetch method, and let's record this data. we can clearly see that this last post data is showing in our string format data. Now we are converting this data in JSON format by using .json method. So now let's print our data. Now we have successfully made a function, but to get a data we have to call a function. So let's call a function get data. Okay, whenever we create a function we need to call a function to make an API call or to run the function. If we go to our browser, let's go this. If we go to browser, then we can see that our data is showing in our console. Now let's go to our file. Now we are just given ID in this HTML file, that main div. Now let's target this ID using JavaScript. Now let's copy this and we're going to get okay. Now whenever we console this div, then let's see what is in the console. Then we can see that our div is showing in the console. That means we can manipulate the div data from our JavaScript file. So now inside of this main div we will create another div using JavaScript. We'll be creating dynamic div by using map method. So whenever something is added in API URL, then we need to add our div statically. So we'll be using map method for that. So data dot map is just like for loop. Map is just like for loop. Now let's console.log current element. We can get all the element of data in this core variable. Okay, core variable or core parameter, and now we will be recording this parameter in our console. Now let's see that all the data is showing in my console, and my data have a key called user ID, title, and body. Now we'll be creating a dynamic div. So to do that, div dot inner HTML plus, now this symbol helps us to create div and also to write JavaScript file inside of it, inside of HTML, inside of HTML tag. So let's give it a class name called submain, and inside of this main div we will be using s3 for title. Whenever we use this symbol, we can simply use $sign and quadrilateral sign to write our JavaScript. So we can access core.key value from that API, core.title. So whenever we see in our browser, then we can see that my title has shown in my UI. So by using this symbol, we have created a dynamic div. So we didn't have to write a single div for each element. For example, if we hover over here, we can see that multiple submain div has been created. but we have created only one div here, and I have previously told you that map is just like for loop, which means my div is created uh, n times. My div is created n times. Okay, which means um, my div is created. Okay, let's see here. Let's see in the console. First of all, let's console.log data. Console.log data. Okay. Now we can see that there is hundreds of data. So my 100 div has been created. 100 divs data has been created, which means I didn't have to write 100 div manually. So through the use of map mirror, we can create a dynamic div, and let's give it a we can access the key value by using core dot user id. Okay, my user id is also showing in my UI. Now let's get id. By the way, this is also another template tutorials. Whenever we use this symbol, we can use dollar sign and quotation sign inside of our HTML tag. So let's go to our browser, and we can see that our data has been shown successfully in my UI. Okay, now let's style this. We'll be using external CSS for styling, and let's give it a name called index.css. And to you, first of all, let's link this CSS file. Okay, now let's give a universal tag. Let's give it a padding 0, margin 0, box sizing border box. Okay, now we have given a class name called submain. Now let's style this div. Okay, dot sub main. Let's put a border 1 pixel, solid black. Now let's see in our browser my CSS is applied successfully. Now we can see that our data is it's very congested. So to resolve this problem, let's use padding in our CSS. Let's give it a padding of 15 pixel, and we can see that now our data is moving freely, has some space in both corners. And now let's give it the margin of 10 pixel. Let's give it border radius 4 pixel. Okay, now border radius is applied. And it is fully responsive. You can see that it's fully responsive. Here let's understand our code. First of all, we create a div and give ID main div, and in our index.js we created a function called getData, which is a async function. And also whenever we write async keyword in our function, then it will return promise. So we use await keyword to fetch our data and await keyword to convert our string into JSON format. Now we have used map method to show our data in for loop inside our div, and we have added a sub main class div inside of our main div. If you like my video, do subscribe my channel